we're going to keep the Richmond High School vibe going with our next speaker, who is not a teacher, but rather the first Richmond High School student to tell a story at Warp Woof. She's a senior at Richmond High School. Please welcome to our stage, Diana Martinez.
Good afternoon. Bill Langley was my Spanish teacher freshman year, and he's hands down the creative person I know. And so I love you, Langley. The story I'm about to tell is a story that was really difficult for me to tell a couple years ago. But now that I'm a senior in high school, it's a story I love sharing because it's part of me and it's shaped me to the person I am now. And I'm only 17, so I haven't really gone through many things that the storytellers have told. So the title of the story is My Family Story is Shaping Me to the Person I Am Today. My parents were really young when I was born. I was their first child. My mom was 22 and my dad was 18. I remember we lived in an apartment. It was a 3-bedroom apartment, and 14 people lived in that apartment. We all shared an apartment, and I remember my grandparents would be there, my 4 uncles, my aunts, and even cousins, and it was a really small space, and there was no money to have a bigger space. I remember my grandparents would stay in the laundry room. Well, it would be a laundry room, but we would turn it into a bedroom. In the summertime, super hot. In the wintertime, it was super cold. So I remember we would put plastic bags on the windows and we would staple it for the cold air to not get in, and my grandparents would get sick. I live in a Hispanic family. I'm Mexican, and in a Hispanic family, the grandparents are the glue in the family. They're everything. We would respect them no matter what. Even if we disagree with them, we can't argue with them. And there was a moment when my grandma decided to leave. When she left, my family fell apart. I remember how my uncles would go everywhere. They basically would never be home anymore. I remember seeing my dad. He was really young at the moment. He would be destroyed. He'd go into, the alcohol came in the story. Alcohol, he would lose his jobs. My mom would work really long shifts. And then my brother was born in 2005. And then my sister was born in 2003. And even though she's not really my sister blood, but she's my aunt because she's my grandma's daughter, I consider her as my sister because she grew up by my side. And I think she's the strongest little girl I've ever seen in my life. Her mom left when she was 2, and her dad left when she was 6. And she's grown up with her brothers and her sisters. And she's here today, and I want everyone to applause to her because she's really the strongest little girl I know. Around the time when my brother was born, about 3 years old, I was about 7 or so, my parents would work day and night. Day and night, I barely see them. We'd go to school. I'd babysit my brother. And I remember when I would babysit him and someone would knock on the door, I'm like, Alex, hide, let's hide, because I don't know what to do with the 3-year-old in the house. And we would hide, and my parents would come home. We'd spend an hour or so with them, and then bam, they would fall asleep for the night. That was it. And that'd be only 7 in the afternoon. My family was still separated because of the whole situation with my grandma. And they just never would get along, even though we all lived in Richmond. We all lived in Richmond, but we never really had the time to come together again after the incident. Until one time where my uncle, he had an accident at work. I remember I was at school, and they called me down to the office, and they were like, Diana Martinez, you have to, your parents are waiting for you in the main office. So I remember going, and I see my dad standing all nervous. I didn't know why he was taking me out of school. He never let me leave school or stay home, even when I'm sick. And so I go up to him, and I'm like, what's wrong? And he's like, we have to go, now. And I remember we got to the hospital and my uncle had broken his leg. And I remember how my uncles would be together, my aunts would be together, and that was the first time in a long time I'd seen my family together. And maybe I should thank my uncle for breaking his leg, I don't know, but whatever, like God has his plan. And maybe God decided to have my uncle break his leg in order for my family to be back together. Being a senior in high school is probably one of the most difficult things. I'm going into a stage in my life where I'm realizing things that it's going to change in my life. And I see young people that don't have that type of family in their homes. You know, my family has gone through so many things when I was growing up. In middle school, I don't know if you have middle school children, there's a trip called the Washington, D.C. trip. So all the 8th graders go at the end of the year. So I'd raising up money, about $800 to go to D.C., and I was so excited to go. But we got a phone call from Mexico, from my mom's dad, and he had severely diabetes. And we didn't have enough money to send him money so he can have dialysis in Mexico. And in Mexico, it's really expensive to even have medicine in your home. And so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go talk to my counselor. I went and I talked to my counselor, and I was like, me being a 13-year-old in 8th grade, I need my money back. And he's like, wait, why do you need your money back? And I was like, I need my $100 back because my grandpa needs it more than I do. And he told me, he's like, sit down and tell me about it. And I was like, okay. And I sat down and I told him, look, I can go to D.C. whenever I want to when I'm older. I can even live there if I decide to have a job there. But I prefer my grandpa have another chance in life than me wanting to spend a whole week with friends at Washington, D.C. That same spring, I turned 15. And in Mexico, a quinceañera is probably the biggest party a girl will ever get in her life, other than prom. And I remember how excited I was, and my mom would talk to me about, oh, we're going to dress you like this, you're going to look like a princess, you're going to have a big party and everything. My dad fell in jail because he didn't have a driver's license. He was in jail for about 2 weeks that year. The next year, again, he was in jail, but this time for a month. My mom and dad lost their jobs because of it, because my little sister was born that year too. My mom lost her job, my dad lost her job. My mom had just gotten out of a C-section. My little sister is her 3rd C-section, and whoever's a mom, you know, C-sections are really difficult, especially if it's the 3rd one. And I remember I was only 15 and I was taking care of a newborn baby. Yeah, it's really difficult because I never seen a baby poop as much as my sister did. I was scared when I first changed her diaper. I had no idea what I was doing. I just see poop all over my hands, and I'm like, oh my God, it's on me. Like, I didn't know what to do. My mom had to stay in bed and rest for a while, and I would see her cry because how infected it was. And so now, every time, even when they see me with my little sister, it's like, oh, is that your daughter? I'm like, no. She's not my daughter. She's my little sister. And she's 3 years old, and she's soon starting preschool. And so it's very emotional for me to see her grow up really fast. And and so when the quinceañera came, I told my mom, I was like, you know what? You lost your job. Dad lost his job. I don't want to waste that much money on a quince. So I was like, you know what? Maybe some other time, maybe on my wedding, you can repay me for that. So when my dad got out of jail, my mom started working night shift. And whoever works night shift knows that's the most difficult shift you can take. I see her get out of the house around 10:30, and she comes back home at 7. And I see her how tired she is, how exhausted she is from the night. Sometimes she has bad nights. And the first few nights she started working night shift, she would come home crying. Because 1, she didn't know the language. 2, it's exhausting. Like, who likes staying up all night, working, and then coming home, taking care of a 3-year-old who likes to run everywhere, make noise, and not be able to sleep? After that, after the whole situation of jail time, losing jobs, not having enough money, I went into high school. I was a freshman in high school. I was a freshie, like they call them. And I was determined on wanting to make a change in my family. I didn't want to be another high school dropout. I didn't want to be pregnant at 16. I want to make a change in my family. And I'm going to be the first one to graduate in my family, high school. And thank you. Thank you. And when I tell my friends, I'm like, for me, I'm going to be the first one to graduate in high school. And they're like, oh, what's a big deal? I'm like, oh, it's a big deal in my family because no one graduated high school in my family. And I can't even imagine what's going to happen when I graduate college. And so yeah, I came into high school and I met amazing teachers that support me every day. And I can't be more thankful of the people that come in my life. And I realized how blessed I am to have this family, to have these teachers, and to live in Richmond, even though so many young people say, I can't wait to get out of Richmond. But Richmond is your home. There's nothing you can change about it. And so when I tell this story, people tell me, like, are you not embarrassed that your dad went to jail? Are you not embarrassed that they lost their jobs? Are you not embarrassed that you couldn't go to D.C. of $800 only? I'm like, no, I'm not embarrassed because it's shaping me to the person I am today. I'm only 17, and I think so much more different than people in the high school. And as I said earlier, I'm a high schooler, and I see young people who don't have that love from family, who hasn't learned to be humble or like reach those goals that they want. And I've learned that from the experience from my parents. I see how my parents work every day, come home, sleep, and just eat exhaustingly. Sometimes they don't even have time to eat because they have to go to work again, or they need to get the rest. And I remember sophomore year of high school, I confronted this guy because this guy told me, you know what, maybe your family wouldn't be struggling if they wouldn't have been here, and maybe they should go back to Mexico. The most annoying thing is that it was a really close friend that said it to me. And I realized at the moment that maybe that wasn't as a friend as I thought it would be. And I told him, you know what, they come here for an opportunity. No, it doesn't matter what's happening outside in the world, but I know who my family is. Yes, they've done mistakes along the way, but I know that whatever they're doing, it's because I need to learn from them. And I'm glad I'm learning from them because I'm turning into a person who has really big dreams, and I know I can accomplish them someday. Thank you.